Good morning. This public hearing is called to order. Today is Tuesday, January 26, 2016, and the time is 10 a.m. My name is Martha Robinson. I'm Associate General Counsel of the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. Here today to listen to the testimony is Michelle Robinson, Deputy Executive Director of the Department's Bureau of Food Safety and Community Sanitation. We are here today for a public hearing on whether the Department and the Commissioner should adopt a new Chapter 32 of Title 24 of the Rules of the City of New York. This hearing is scheduled to take place from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. The purpose of today's hearing is to elicit your comments and information to assist the Commissioner in determining whether to adopt Chapter 32. A notice of intention to adopt Chapter 32 was published in the City Record on December 11th, 2015. A copy of the notice of intention and the first page to be included in the record is being provided to the reporter. Persons wishing to speak at this hearing were asked to pre-register, unfortunately, because the person receiving your calls was not at the office. Apparently you weren't able to pre-register, but you did register this morning, and I'm going to call on you in the order in which you registered. People wishing to speak have 5 minutes to speak, and I will remind you of your time. The hearing is scheduled till 12 o'clock. If there are no people ready to speak when you finish, then we will adjourn the hearing to 11:45 and then resume it and then close it. So anybody who comes in will, between the time, is going to be allowed to speak. The first person who signed in was Shari Bornstein. I would ask everybody to provide your name, to spell your name if the reporter requests it. And I have your names written down here, and to identify any organization that you belong to on whose behalf you're testifying. Ms. Bornstein.
Thank you. Good morning. As I signed in, my name is Shari Bornstein. I am the legislative aide in Linda Rosenthal's office. She is in Albany and is unable to be here, although she would very much like to have been here this morning. So I'm going to read the testimony that she's asked me to provide for this hearing. Assemblymember Linda B. Rosenthal's comments before the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene on proposed rulemaking on Section 1352-E of the New York State Public Health Law, authorizing operators of food service establishments to allow companion or pet dogs to accompany owner patrons in certain outdoor dining areas of their establishments, subject to control measures approved by a locality's enforcement agency. January 26, 2016. Good morning. I am Assemblymember Linda B. Rosenthal, and I represent the 67th Assembly District, which includes the Upper West Side and parts of the Clinton and Hell's Kitchen neighborhoods in Manhattan. As the prime sponsor of the legislation, now law, authorizing operators of food service establishments to allow companion or pet dogs to accompany patrons in the outdoor dining areas, it is necessary that I comment on the rules proposed by the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, DOHMH. Though Section 1352 of the Public Health Law authorizes municipalities to promulgate regulations to govern the implementation of this section, it does not give municipalities the authority to promulgate rules to prevent implementation altogether. Yet that is precisely what DOHMH has proposed by requiring restaurateurs to confirm the status of dogs, licenses, and rabies vaccines. This requirement, if implemented, would be so onerous for potentially participating food service establishments as to make compliance nearly impossible. Though New York City law rightly requires that all dogs living within the city limits have a valid license and up-to-date rabies vaccine, according to the DOHMH's own statistics, only 20% of all dog-owning New Yorkers comply with this regulation. In the past, I partnered with DOHMH and previous mayoral administrations to help improve dog licensing rates in New York City, even allocating state funding for a public service campaign aimed at promoting licensing. Despite this effort, the rates of licensure have not increased, in large part due to a lack of commitment and overly lax enforcement by the DOH-MH itself. Placing the burden of enforcing a provision of New York City law that the city itself has never prioritized on untrained staff at food service establishments, many of who are high school graduates or recent immigrants to this country, is foolhardy. In addition, it is worth noting that New York City does not require its own employees at New York City-owned and operated dog runs or public parks to check dog licenses or vaccination status. DOH-MH has proposed that untrained food service establishment staff check the validity of rabies vaccine tags and licenses. Consider a popular restaurant during peak weekend brunch or lunch hours on a mild spring afternoon. The host or hostess is working to seat dozens of patrons, both in and outdoors, and in addition to triaging all manner of patrons' reasonable and unreasonable requests, will now also be required to get down on hands and knees to check licenses and vaccination tags. This is simply ridiculous. Failure to do so would subject the restaurant to a violation from the DOH-MH and could also expose it to civil liability. All responsible dog owners know that they must have a valid dog license and rabies vaccine as required by New York City law. The burden has always been squarely and rightly placed on the shoulders of dog owners to comply with this section of the law. It is unfair to shift that burden to restaurants in an attempt to have private businesses help to enforce a provision of the New York City law that the city has failed to enforce for years. Doing so now makes little sense unless, of course, the aim is to frustrate implementation of Section 1352 of the New York State Public Health Law. In addition, it has come to my attention that DOH-MH has recently begun sending paper dog license renewals instead of new tags to owners. The new paper renewals will further complicate restaurants' compliance since untrained staff would be required to check tags for some dogs and paper licenses for others. Sadly, even the most responsible dog owners fail to carry around a copy of their dog's license at all times. This requirement could have the effect of barring dogs that are licensed and vaccinated if the owner simply forgot the paperwork at home. The signage requirements of Section 1352 of the Public Health Law were written carefully with an eye toward compliance with the American with Disabilities Act and New York Human Rights Law. I worked closely with advocates from the disability community and my colleagues in government with expertise on these issues to ensure that the signage required by this law clearly indicated that service animals and not merely dogs could, as always, enter any part of the food service establishment and not merely the outdoor areas. The regulations proposed by DOH-MH effectively erase this important distinction, which was a hard-fought victory for the disability community and will make it more difficult for service animals to be accommodated in restaurants. Without a clear statement about the important distinction between service animals and companion dogs, the proposed regulations further confuse restaurant staff who now will be required to check the tags of some dogs, the paperwork of others, and who are prohibited by law from checking the tags or licenses of any service animals. The proposed signage requirement is antithetical to the spirit and the letter of the Americans with Disabilities Law and must be removed on these grounds alone. Given the obvious problems that the proposed regulations pose for restaurants and the difficulty they will cause for disabled individuals who rely on service animals, one cannot help but come to the conclusion that DOH-MH put very little thought into the impact that this requirement would have. While I understand that DOH-MH did not support dining with dogs since its inception, it is now New York State law. As such, DOH-MH has a responsibility to follow the law and implement reasonable regulations that are tailored to protect human health but do not have a chilling effect on future compliance with the law. I urge DOH-MH to reconsider the proposed regulations and support the New York City restaurants and dog lovers alike who have demanded that they be permitted to dine with their dogs. And I have a copy of
All
the
right, thank you.
testimony I can leave for you.
Yes, please. The next person I have scheduled here is somebody named Donnie Moss.
I'm that somebody.
Okay, Mr. Moss. All right. Is there anybody else who's come in who wishes to sign up to speak? Okay. All right, Mr. Moss.
So am I speaking?
Yes, you're speaking, there's no microphone here,
Okay.
so you just
I'm
have
just gonna
to
pretend.
speak clearly
Okay.
and so the reporter can get your
It,
remarks.
I guess it would be helpful to know, I'm not sure the extent to which this is, you could provide feedback, but what the real objection is, because these restrictions, as you well know, will kill this bill. Proof of license and proof of vaccine is not required in public parks and in dog runs where people have, and dogs have far more interaction with each other than they will in restaurants. So how's this going to protect the public health in restaurants if it's not being used to protect the public health in dog runs or just on the street? I didn't know that this was illegal to bring your dog into restaurants because I've been doing it for years sporadically and no one's ever said anything to me. And it's outdoors, so I just, you know, dogs are allowed outdoors. I just didn't even know this was a thing until I read it in the news. But I have noticed that there are dogs that sit outside the barrier of outdoor areas and restaurants. And I've noticed people trip on them and stumble out of, you know, and then dogs getting injured and people falling down because there are dogs in the street. So wouldn't it be more detrimental to public health to have these dogs outside of the barriers and inside of the barriers? And what's the difference? This seems like a punitive measure. Restaurants are going to, you know, restaurants aren't going to be able to get additional business. Dogs have to pay the price for this because they're left at home alone after maybe their human companions go out or at work all day. Then they come home. They want to take their dogs out, but they wouldn't be able to. And you know, it punishes the people, the restaurants, and the dogs. California has been doing this for over a year without incident. So what's the problem here? So it would be nice to know, again, what is motivating this? What's the real issue here so we could address that as opposed to addressing what clearly are not real issues, licensing and vaccinating, or proof of license and vaccine, which aren't going to do anything to protect the public health. One last point, I actually am one of the few New Yorkers who actually does renew my dog license every year, and I pay the money, and then this year I got a letter in the mail saying that the license is renewed, and I never got the tag.
Right.
So that's it.
Okay. Jeanette Patterson? Is there anybody else out there?
Not yet. I'm
Okay.
working on this and then questioning.
Sorry. Good morning. I'm Jeanette Patterson. I'm a Manhattan resident. I live on the Upper West Side. I come today in a capacity as a volunteer for this effort in keeping the law intact as it is. I'm a real estate broker. I live on Central Park West. So I'm on the Upper West Side quite a bit. I'm on the streets between these avenues that have a lot of outdoor restaurants. So I witnessed what Donnie spoke to earlier, which is the leash factor of these dogs being kept on the outside. We have some sections where we have a lot of outdoor restaurants. I don't know if you're familiar with Amsterdam, Columbus, but there's a lot of outdoor restaurants. And these leashes really are a challenge in the nice days when these dogs are being kept outside. I got involved with this issue with a woman who spearheaded the campaign to make this possible in California. And it passed a few years ago in California. It had no negative effects for the restaurants that now allow dogs to dine on patios. In this case, with this law, it's the restaurant owner's prerogative to allow dogs or not allow dogs. So really who we're punishing here is the restaurant owner who could benefit financially from the increased business. I am owned by a cute little dog who's well behaved, and I think I'd like to just speak to the fact that most of us who have dogs, they're well behaved in the public, and that's why they're with us in New York City environments and are the type of dogs that would get along well in a restaurant environment. Again, I'm also confused about where this is coming from, what the DOH, what the real objective is with blocking this law. It's a quality of life issue. There are dogs that are at home for long work days, And again, when we come home from work, do we have time to go take the dog for a long walk, then come home, drop off the dog, and if we want to go out and enjoy a nice meal, then we leave the dog at home. I really see it in that way. I tried to reach out to some restaurants to get support for this issue, and it was interesting that some of the restaurants that I'm a regular patron of were hesitant to speak up. They felt that if they stood up for this issue, that they might have repercussions. I don't know specifically what that looks like, but they were nervous to go on record, to be a voice for this issue, going against DOH. What might that look like? I know that last week a memo was sent. They shared with me the notice of proposed regulations affecting restaurants, opportunity to comment. That was sent out to all restaurant owners last week. She sent me a copy of that, one of my friends at a restaurant owner. A number of us tried to get online to register our comments about this issue, and it was very cumbersome to get online to register our comments. Some gave up. It took multiple tries to get into the website to actually log our complaints or our comments, and I think that was a hindrance and some voices for the public there. But I do find it disturbing that some restaurant owners would really like to see this law stay intact to benefit their, their business. Were chilled in speaking up. So I came here today to make that comment. But mostly I see the quality of life for New Yorkers having the choice. Again, it's working very well in California. I'm sorry my friend who helped pass this law here moved back to California, where she's having wonderful meals with her dogs outside now. So I do hope you'll keep the law intact as it is, and I think it's a win-win for everyone. Thank you.
Ryan Long.
Good morning, my name is Ryan Long. I come today in the capacity of a resident of Queens and a dog walker and a dog owner myself. The point that I would like to make today in my testimony is that dog walkers see the amount of time that dogs spend alone without their owners. And imposing these new rules will be a further hindrance of dogs being able to spend time with their human companions because, as Jeanette said, people work long hours, dogs are home for many hours alone, and if owners are not able to bring their dog elsewhere, the dog ends up spending more time alone in their apartment or their house, which makes them less of a good neighbor. They're more likely to either destroy apartments or be a bother to other neighbors with barking or other problems. People make informed decisions about where they bring their dog, just the same way as people make informed decisions about where they bring their children. It is not often that you experience a screaming child in a restaurant because parents know, my child does not do well in restaurants, I will not bring them. The same goes for dog owners. People who have dogs with behavioral problems are not likely to bring their dog to a restaurant, even if it is permitted, as I've never encountered a problem with a dog in a restaurant because owners make that informed decision, as I do myself. And from a personal stance, it is often a point of contention in my home whether to bring our dog to a restaurant that does or does not have outdoor seating. As a dog walker and a real estate broker, I am all about following rules when it comes to animals. So if a restaurant does not have outdoor seating, I am firmly against bringing my dog to that establishment because I know it is against the rules. However, if there are outdoor seating options available, it has never been a problem in my experience, and oftentimes the staff does not even notice that my dog is there because I keep him inside of a bag. If there were the ability of restaurants to choose the option to have dogs in outdoor seating, those would be restaurants that I would specifically patronize more because I know that I'm able to bring my dog along with us. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Gino Filippone?
It's a perfect pronunciation.
Well, we get credit for something today.
I'm giving you credit, Martha Robinson. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm Gino Filippone, and I am just here to show my support. All I want to say is I'm a wedding planner. I'm not proposing to anyone. We do international weddings, 200 a year. UK couples, French couples come to New York to tie the knot. And in France, because I marry so many couples in Central Park and little Top of the Rock or little locations, these are boutique weddings. They're never more than just a couple of people. But it's fascinating to the French couples because this in France is a way of life now, to be able to bring your dog to a cafe and enjoy a quality of life. And I just don't want New York. I was so thrilled that this went through. there's such a golden opportunity now. I have 3 dogs of my own. I live on the corner of 67th and Central Park West. I abide by all the rules. We have licenses, we have the tags, and off-leash, on-leash, whatever it is. I spend more time on bringquido.com. I just really want to see this go through. I never make it out to Queens, and I'm happy to be here. This is a cause for me that's true to my heart, so I wish you would reconsider. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Edita Burnkrant?
Burnkrant.
Could you spell your name for the reporter, please?
BIRNKRANT, first name EDITA. Okay, so I'm representing Friends of Animals, and we're an international animal protection organization founded in 1957 in New York. And we're in full support of the Dining with Dogs bill as it was written and signed into law by Governor Cuomo, and we are against some of these proposed rule changes. Just to give a little background, since 1957, Friends of Animals has led the effort to educate and promote responsible pet ownership, and has run the United States' first and longest running low-cost dog and spay-neuter program. And we've facilitated more than 2.6 million spay-neuter surgeries for cats and dogs, so this is an issue very important to us. We strongly supported passage of this bill, which makes New York State more dog-friendly, and which helps boost business at restaurants by making it easier for patrons to bring their beloved 4-legged family members with them while dining outside, instead of feeling like they have to leave them at home. This legislation is a win for dogs, for dog owners, for restaurants, and serves to send a positive message that New York is leading the progressive effort to be more animal-friendly. And we have received so many phone calls, letters, and emails from our New York members in support of this bill passing. So many who, contacted their legislators to help it pass, and we're so happy that it did pass. So I was very disappointed to see the proposed change rules. We object to the proposal to modify the law and add new burdensome regulations that would likely discourage dog owners and restaurants from fully embracing this new law or utilizing it at all, as so many others have pointed out. After all, the entire purpose of the law was to make it legal and easier for residents to dine with their dogs, and we know there is tremendous need for this. This is so many dog owners throughout New York City, so many that are already doing it in violation of the law with negative consequences, as was pointed out, with dogs being in front of the barriers and leashes, people tripping over the dogs. This is a way to change all those things for the better. So mandating dog owners to bring and show proof of vaccination and dog licenses to the restaurant staff is onerous, and requiring restaurants to check these items before allowing dogs to dine with their owners is unrealistic and unprecedented in its restrictiveness, as was pointed out. No place else does this. And it's very hypocritical for the department to put this on a bill that they fought against passing when you have it no place else throughout New York City. That's wrong. Requiring restaurant owners to construct outdoor barriers is also unnecessarily burdensome financially and as a practical matter for restaurant owners. The tremendously positive response to this same law passing in California and the total lack of problems in that state that New York City officials fear will happen here in New York City should be taken into account in regards to reconsidering these prohibitive proposals. I think it's reasonable to require postage in the restaurants explaining the law, but the other proposed rules should not be enacted. Please allow dining with dogs to be the law of the land in New York City as it was written and signed into law. I'm sure New York City and the Department of Health does not want to be looked upon as dog haters and bullies. Thank you.
Do you have written remarks
Yes,
that you
I
want to
have
submit?
copies, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know how many you need, but
I don't need more than
Okay,
two.
I can take
I
back
could
you.
take one.
You want one?
Here, I'll give her.
Just in case an extra.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie Capiello. By the way, if anybody else wishes to sign up to speak, please let me know. You have more there?
I think I added mine because I was already on it, so you can leave it.
I'm not gonna call you.
Yeah.
Fine. Sorry, go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Julie Capiello. I'm here to speak on behalf of NY Class and our thousands of supporters. The dining with dogs law is a common sense law as it's written right now that allows dogs in outdoor seating areas that in restaurants that choose to participate. This allows animal-loving restaurant goers the opportunity to enjoy the unique experience of dining with their beloved companions. The proposed regulations, which include forcing restaurant employees to check licensing tags and construct barriers between dining areas and sidewalks, make it nearly impossible for restaurants to allow dogs on their outdoor patios. This bill, which was backed by the restaurant industry, and many eateries want to offer New Yorkers the experience of being able to dine out with their dogs. But the New York City Department of Health is forcing restaurants to turn away potential customers and affecting thousands of New Yorkers who love to dine with their pets. The law already describes minimum sanitary requirements, and it should be left up to the restaurateurs to strengthen their policy if they wish to do so. We respectfully urge the New York City Department of Health to cut back on the regulations regarding this bill so as to make this an experience all New Yorkers can enjoy without hassle.
Do you want to submit your written comments? Thank you. I have one more name, Alex Stevens.
Hi, I'm Alex Stevens. I'm here also to listen to everybody and hear some of these proposed changes. I represent a group of Bushwick restaurant owners and managers, and one issue also from what I'm hearing about some of the new regulations proposed is requiring staff to question licenses and whatnot. One thing I think is service animals need to be considered. Some people with service animals, you don't know why they have them. One of my regulars has PTSD, and yeah, I think it's discriminatory to have to ask about that. That's all I have for now, and I'd like to read some of your information. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else here who wishes to speak? Yes, sir. And your name and
Nicholas
the name of any organization that you represent.
Nicholas Sackett.
How do you spell your name?
NICKOLAUSSACKETT. And the organization I work for is Social Compassion in Legislation.
Go ahead.
Social Compassion helped pass the law in California. We've had no problems since its passage. We worked here in New York as well to help pass the law. We feel that all the language currently within the law protects the public health, protects restaurant owners, gives them the option to opt out. If there's a situation where the restaurant owner feels that there would be some liability, they have the option to say we won't allow dogs here. Furthermore, I'm going to reiterate a lot of the points that everyone else spoke about today, so I won't get into it, but we do feel that some of the rule changes are arbitrary in their nature, in that they don't require, there aren't other places where dogs are allowed where the owners are required to check tags and licenses. Secondly, dogs are already allowed to pass by these outdoor seating areas, so you can't stop the public from having their dogs go by. So even if you have a restaurant that doesn't allow dogs, there still will be interaction between dogs and outdoor seating areas. So to require now to have a fence put up seems onerous and arbitrary as well. Again, I want to reiterate the lack of issues in California. We've had great response from restaurant owners. This really is about giving people a choice and understanding that the Department of Health does need to look out for people's health, but I think if you look at all your other regulations across the board, these seem definitely arbitrary and onerous. That's all we have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? What do you want? Okay. All right, we'll take a pause.
Can the DOH talk about the rationale for this?
It's in the proposal. If you don't have a copy of the proposal, if you need a copy of it.
Is that available online, the proposal, or?
Yes, it's online, but
Okay.
this was available online all along.
Yeah.
If it's not
But I would
read
also,
it.
I forgot to mention in my testimony that the website, it was ridiculous to try to
Right,
get,
there's
make
more
your
than one-
comments,
There's
so-
more than one website there, if you notice.
No, I don't know
It
this.
was very onerous to get.
What was put online as the way to,
Right,
Put
but this
comments
was
in.
online.
We're talking about posting a
we
comment.
meant posting the comment on the
Posting
Department
the
of Health.
It was
comment.
virtually
Which site
impossible.
did you go to?
The Department of Health
Department of
government
Health
site.
site?
That, it was, and I already was in the system because I commented, it took me 7 tries. Most people would give up, so I think there were many more people that would have liked to comment that could not, and in the year 2016, your website has to function better.
It was, the
was
City
ridiculous.
City of New York rules.cityofnewyork.us
Yeah,
tags.
That's the other site, there are 2 sites there.
Yeah,
I never saw
This
anything
is-
about the other.
This is the only site that was,
yeah, but either way, you couldn't post,
get on.
you had
It was-
difficulties. Okay.
Most people wouldn't have tried 7 times like I did over the course of days, you know, it was ridiculous.
And if that ever happens again, so that we know, call
Oh,
311
boy.
immediately.
Is that a joke? You're kidding,
I
right?
used 311.
Well, maybe because you're a VIP. Anyway,
Oh,
I
no,
mean, it's like a
not
comedy of
VIP.
errors every time I use 311. That's another issue. It's a total hot mess. I'm sure you've heard that before, but literally, I've
Actually-
never once had help with 311.
You-
Never. I am not kidding. And if you poll most New Yorkers, I don't even bother unless I'm totally desperate and there's no other way. But
Find out
It's-
if she's.
I can't.
I've actually, just a point, I use it personally for my self, not
You
because
do?
of the job.
That's good.
I
Maybe
was
I've just
trying
had
to
bad
put-
luck.
I lost a
don't know.
bag in
Maybe
a
I've
taxi
had
cab,
Mhm.
yeah.
I guess for different things it can be more helpful, but it gets confusing and
A lot of the times the operators on 311 also don't know.
Continue the hearing until 11:45. So if nobody comes in to speak, there will be nothing happening in this room until 11:45. Okay? All right, we're back on the record. There being no other persons present to speak, the hearing is continued until 11:45. It'll be open then for a period of time to allow any people who come after you to speak, and if there are no people there to speak at that time, the hearing will be closed. So thank you.
Thank you.
Now, it is now approximately 11:47, and there being no people here to testify, this hearing is officially closed.